unless you're one of Wendy's 3 supporters, who are all Wendy and different screen names. I'm looking at you, Glenn, or should I say Glendy. Try harder next time. You're wondering how she's spent 11 years free, or as prison folk call it, on the outside. Wendy is currently living in beautiful Austin, Texas, residing in a 2,784 square foot brick home that she is currently renting for $3,500 a month. Located 20 minutes outside of downtown Austin, this beautiful colonial revival home boasts 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. An open, spacious floor plan makes this home the perfect spot for entertaining and relaxing. The gourmet kitchen opens up to a breakfast nook and is the perfect spot to eat your own words. The master bedroom features vaulted ceilings with plenty of natural light to keep up with your favorite books. Enjoy a bubble bath in your garden tub and lavish yourself at the double vanity where you can brush your teeth without getting shaken down for commissary.
So I was in the bathroom. It's 10:30 at night. I went in to brush my teeth.
Okay.
There are three sink stations in the bathroom. Each one has 4 sinks, and I was at the center station with my back to the door, and I'm a righty, so I was holding my toothbrush with my right hand, and I was balancing myself with my left hand on the sink. I was just brushing my teeth. That's all I was doing.
And what happened?
And someone came up behind me and pulled my left hand away from the sink and twisted my arm and like jerked it behind my back, like reaching up toward my neck.
Okay.
And
Did it hurt?
yeah, it hurt.
Okay. What happened?
It hurt. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she's, in the same breath that she did that with my arm, she said, "You're going to buy me commissary." I said, "I'm going to what?" And she said, "Unless you want those pretty white teeth knocked out of your mouth, you're going to buy me commissary." So I said, okay. And then she named a package that she wanted, and she's out. She was gone. She just that fast.
Okay. How bad would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you rate the pain at the time that she did that to you?
Oh my God, it was a 10.
Okay.
I didn't know my arm could reach that far back.
Okay. And what did you do after she did that to you?
So, kind of stood there for a minute, and then I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go back to my bunk. And I went back to my bunk and I got under the covers and I cried. I just stayed under my covers. I didn't come out.
Okay.
And that is actually the house that Wendy is renting right now. And I truly hope that every morning she wakes up and takes a big stretch and remembers how nice and cozy her bed feels. So when she moves into her new place, care of the state of Florida, she'll be able to fondly look back on the life she could have had if she hadn't been a complete piece of human garbage. Too bad, so sad. So let's do a little review. Her immunity means practically nothing and will do zilch in terms of saving her. Now, you are testifying today under a state subpoena, correct?
Correct.
And that state subpoena gives you immunity for your testimony, right?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury, since you're an attorney, what immunity is?
Immunity is freedom from prosecution.
So that means that anything you say today can't be used against you if the state decides to arrest you later on.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me.
Do you know if they consider you a suspect?
I don't know.
No. They do, bitch. And have since day one. but we'll come back to that.
Last thing I get this afternoon is probably not what you want to hear, but it was a little legal lesson that one of the jurors raised. They asked a question about the type of immunity that was discussed by Ms. Adelson. It's really not a fact question, it's a legal question, but this is a little legal lesson. In the state of Florida, there are three kinds of immunity. There's transactional immunity, there's use immunity, there's use and derivative use immunity. Transactional immunity means that some person cannot be prosecuted for an offense. Use immunity means that what the person says cannot directly be used against them. Use and derivative use immunity means that what they say cannot be used against them, nor can it be used to develop leads to gather evidence against them. The type of immunity that Ms. Adelson has received, because I have been the one that explained it to her, is use and derivative use immunity. In other words, what she says today cannot be used directly against it, nor can it be used to develop leads against her. She does not have transactional immunity. I mean, she could be prosecuted for the crimes involved, but what she said cannot be used against her, nor used for any leads to develop information. So hopefully that answers the juror's question that asked the question.
Well, I'm sure it answered the jurors' questions, but our little Wendy Pooh didn't seem to understand. Because even though the judge himself explained it to her, she still said,
Immunity is freedom from prosecution.
"Not for you though, bitch."
I said, bitch.
And then a mere 2.5 years later, she still didn't understand.
Ms. Adelson, where do you currently live?
I currently live in Miami Beach.
And are you here today pursuant to a state subpoena?
Yes, I am.
And do all state subpoenas confer immunity?
I don't know if all state subpoenas confer immunity, but this one does.
Okay, and do you believe that your subpoena is special or different from other state subpoenas?
I don't believe it's special or different, so I suppose they all carry immunity.
All right, and does the immunity conferred upon you by the subpoena mean that you can never be prosecuted associated with this case?
That's right.
That's what you think it means?
That's what I think it means.
Okay. And do you think, isn't it true that it's use and derivative use immunity? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, but not complete immunity from prosecution. Do you agree with that?
That's different than what you just asked before. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
All right, so what I'm trying to allow the jury to understand is what sort of immunity you have. What is your understanding of what it means for you to have immunity pursuant to the state subpoena?
So I have derivative and use immunity. And so in the future, a prosecutor couldn't use what I say here today against me.
Correct. But you could be prosecuted. Just nothing you said here today could be used against you in that prosecution. Do you agree with that?
I suppose so.
Okay. Have you made any sort of special deal with the state attorney's office or with any law enforcement or government agent?
No.
Okay, I mean, we got there eventually, but this woman is a lawyer. It shouldn't be this hard for her to understand. And she uses the excuse that she isn't proficient in criminal law, and that's why she can't remember. But I think it's just like her insisting that Trescott is a shortcut. She thinks if she says it enough, it'll come true.
Is a wish your heart makes.
The government asked you about immunity, so let's get into that. You explained that as an attorney, you understand that when the government gives a subpoena for somebody to testify, that it conveys immunity, right?
That's my understanding. My knowledge of criminal law dates back to 2003 when I took a semester in law school. So forgive me.
Graduated law school, right?
This isn't my area of law.
When you clerked on the 11th Circuit, it was with Judge Jordan, right?
I did immigration appeals.
Yeah, but you still dealt with criminal stuff as well, too.
Very little.
So your understanding, though, is it doesn't mean they can't arrest you. They just can't use what you say here against you later on. So you're protected.
Correct.
And you needed that to testify, right?
It's just given to testify. It's not a question of whether I needed it. It comes with testifying.
No, you needed it. Wendy, you were standing right next to your lawyer when he told the court that you would refuse to testify if not under the state subpoena. We were all there.
John Lauro, and with me is Miss Adelson. Your Honor, as you know, Miss Adelson has been subpoenaed by the state as well as the defense. She, without a state subpoena, would unequivocally invoke her Fifth Amendment rights. We want to make that clear for the record. In light of Your Honor's prior rulings and direction, we wanted to put that on the record. However, with respect to the state subpoena, it automatically confers use and derivative use immunity on her pursuant to Florida Statute 914.04. That use and derivative use immunity would only apply to a state subpoena and not to a defense subpoena. So in light of that, we would ask respectfully that the court quash the defendant's subpoena, since there's no purpose and no appropriate purpose in calling a witness simply to invoke in front of the jury.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Laura. Any questions that are given to Ms. Adelson if she was called with the defense case, is she going to assert her Fifth Amendment rights to any question that's asked at that time?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm assuming any question would have to be relevant and germane to the matters in this case, and as a result, she would invoke as to those questions.
All right. And so I'm just going to assert my previous ruling that I've made, and I did restate it on the record yesterday, is that she'll be required to testify under the state subpoena. The cross-examination will be limited to whatever the state's brings forth on direct. So that's what the cross-examination scope will be limited to. There's no piggybacking or bringing in any other information just because she's under the state subpoena. That's not going to be permissible. And then she's not going to be permitted to be called as a witness. Now that we know that she's just going to assert her Fifth Amendment rights, she won't be called as a witness in the defense case at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. That's
Okay.
exactly our understanding of the law.
All right. Okay. Anything else for the court?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask that Ms. Adelson then please remain outside the courtroom because she's subject to the rule.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
So you don't need immunity, yet you absolutely refuse to testify without it. Right. Got it. And your lawyer mentions the type of immunity you had not once, but twice. And no one's asking you general questions about criminal law that they expect you to answer. If that's not the area of the law that you practice, fine. But not knowing or pretending not to know what the details are surrounding your own personal immunity is ridiculous and irresponsible. Okay, let's get back to listening to Christopher DeCoste destroy you.
You fear being charged by them, so you need to have that protection of
I
your
don't
words.
fear being charged for a crime I didn't commit, no.
Now, y'all had this nice exchange where it was pleasant, but there's actually tension between you and this office, right?
No.
Hold on a second, Mr.
There's subpoena around.
You remain under their subpoena. Right, you.
Adelson has a flight tonight at 7 p.m. May she return home and
Right. You can communicate with her about any arrangements if you need her to come back, but she's free to go at this point.
I know it didn't happen like this, but I always envision Georgia sticking her shoulder out to check Wendy as she walks by and then saying, "Did you just hit me? Huh? Don't play dumb with me. Do you want to go?" I'm sorry? Meet me in the parking lot. We're having a lawyer-on-lawyer cage fight. Sarah, hold my earrings. That would be my favorite. Okay, so we pretty well established that Wendy has no meaningful immunity that's going to keep her from getting cuffed. And just for funsies, let's watch Christopher DeCoste get her all riled up by telling her to just admit her guilt to the jury.
So you need to ask a question.
Understood, Your Honor. If I could have one brief second to check with Bill Counsel.
She should get put away just for willingly drinking Aquafina. I would rather drink the slime off of a slug than put Aquafina anywhere near my mouth. He has already got her in such a state.
Miss Adelson, we started this by saying that this is all about you. It started with you because of this marriage, right?
No. Well, you had tried to say that, but I don't agree.
These are the eyes of a mad woman.
Miss Adelson, I'm going to make one final attempt through questions to implore you.
He's giving you one more chance, Wendi.
You understand that you can't protect your brother Charles, who's going through this case, and protect yourself at the same time. You understand that, right?
I'm here to share the truth with you. I don't know how to answer the question.
Then please end the madness and share the truth. Will you please share the truth with this juror?
And the madness.
I've been sharing the truth since I walked in here. I've done nothing but share the truth.
You know what happened here, despite your claims to the jury that you haven't looked at anything, you haven't discussed with anybody, and you haven't confronted your brother. You know what happened here, right?
I do not know what happened here, and if I did, I would have shared it with the police 8 years ago.
And if she could scowl at you, she would, but her forehead has been paralyzed for just as long.
You know that your brother went behind your back, don't you?
I do not.
Like he always does. This is something that he has always done, isn't it?
Not.
You found out after that your brother had done this and gone behind your back. That's why you were throwing up at that dinner, right?
No, it's not.
You know that it didn't involve Katie either, right?
I don't know anything about...
If you're not going to say all of that and finally give the truth, why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty? Why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty? Why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty? Why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty? Why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty?
Because I'm not guilty.
One brief moment, John. I got nothing further.
Redirect.
Georgia, Sarah, and I mean this with absolutely no disrespect, but can we please just bring this guy to Donna's trial just to rile up Wendi before direct?
What's today's secret word?
Well, today's secret word is...
Would never.
I made my brother, his name's Charlie, the one I'm really close to, he makes a lot of jokes in bad taste, and it was a joke he made. He bought the TV for me this morning that got broken, and I was talking to him about whether it made sense to pay to fix it or whether I should get a new one, and it was always his joke that, like, he knew Danny treated me badly, and it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman, and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV. I mean, he would never... He's my big brother, and he's been taking care of me since I was little, but he would never. But even my family, who felt like I had been mistreated, would never do something like this. Never. You know, my parents are, very angry towards him. But even when they're around my kids, they would never say a bad word about my kid's father. They're really, really careful about that. They just like him, but they know he's the father of my kids. They would never do that. My ex-husband caused me a lot of grief. I would never do something like this.
For the breakdown.
Never gonna get it, never gonna get it, never gonna gonna get it, never gonna get it, never gonna get it, never gonna get it, never gonna get it.
Would never is code for definitely did. Wendi told Isom over and over that she was a suspect during this interrogation.
I understand why you think I'm the primary suspect.
No, you're not the primary suspect. I have, and it's
So
gonna.
I understand why I would be the person you would think would do something. But,
Well, we have to.
And I get why I would be a suspect, but I can see why they would think it would be me. You know, and then I was thinking, oh my God, now they probably think I'm a suspect. I should.
But of course you're a suspect, and you're a smart suspect. You should be the suspect.
I'm assuming I'm a suspect. Like, do I need to be read my Miranda rights or something if you're gonna look at my phone?
I can read you Miranda if you want to hear that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to make sure I'm being.
I have no reason. I have no reason at this point to suspect you in this incident. Okay.
I couldn't tell from the way you were talking to me in the car if I was a suspect.
Well, no,
I understand why I'm a suspect. I guess I'm not a suspect. I understand why you would think that I would do this, but not you. But
right.
I just keep feeling like I'm a suspect, and I need to, like, am I a suspect? You need to.
Fuck, confess already.
Why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty?
I always wondered if Sarah, the victim advocate, knew that Wendi was a suspect. And I've always had the sneaking suspicion that she did. But then I found a clip that confirms what I'd been suspecting all along. It's towards the end of the night, and it's one of the last things she ever says to Wendi. And watch Wendy's reaction when she says it, because she picks up on it immediately.
They're like, you need your work computer. I'm like, work? Take my computer. There's nothing on it you're going to find that's going to... Well, I don't know. Maybe there's something they'll find that's useful, but...
Well, you know, they're used to thinking. A lot of times things will happen like burglaries, or they deal with suspects who aren't cooperative and don't, you know, they're like, give me my stuff back. And...
Yeah.
You've been a super cooperative suspect, Wendi. And you know what? Because you were such a big helper. You get to pick out a super special sticker all by yourself. Which one? That one? Wow, Wendi.
Wow,
Great choice,
Wendi.
Wow.
I want to slow that part down so we can watch Wendy's body language change as she completely dissolves into her chair, defeated.
Burglaries, or they deal with suspects who aren't cooperative and don't, you know, they're like, give them my stuff back. And...
Yeah.
Before.
Take my...
Smiling, lighthearted, animated, confident, direct eye contact. After. Head down, closed off, holding her neck to protect her carotid artery, sighs of sadness, completely shut down and not talking. I think Sarah did her best for the most part. I think she was brought in there mostly to keep Wendi talking and to keep up the ruse that she was a victim. I feel like she was definitely picking up of most of the off-putting comments Wendi was making, and there were times that she was visibly uncomfortable due to those comments.
Oh my God. Well, my parents sounded really surprised, so it's at least a relief. I was trying to think of who would be angry enough to do something to him. My parents would be angry, but they're not capable of this. Thank God. I really couldn't handle that right now.
Yeah, no.
What an absolute bonkers thing to say. Well, it sounds like my parents weren't the one who killed him. Probably, perhaps. They're definitely pissed enough, and I'm clearly telling you that they're most certainly capable of this. But it doesn't sound like they have blood on their hands right now. I couldn't handle knowing both my parents and my brother Charlie and me myself all conspired to kill Dan. I mean, we did, but geez, I've got enough on my plate. I have to pack for my move to Miami. JK, I already did that all week, actually. I'm a planner. The way she looks to Sarah for some reassurance in response from that absolutely unhinged dumpster fire of a monologue is beyond insane. And poor Sarah, clearly dumbfounded, can only manage
Yeah, no.
So, Wendy, that's what we call an inside thought. Those ones stay in your brain. I know it's tough, but if you really feel like you just can't hold it in anymore, you can try to write it down in your journal or take a little walk into the woods and tell it to a kindly little frog. But when we're in a police station as a suspect for murder, it's maybe not the nicest time to say something like, my parents more than likely killed my ex. Jeff also spoke with her after the murder and reported on a few odd occurrences. Well, Jeff was a treasure trove of information, but I just wanted to touch on a few of his revelations.
Okay. All right, I got the men that you're talking about. She made, well, first of all, does she still have the same phone number?
She switched her phone 3 or 4 days after the shooting because she thought you guys had bugged it.
Okay. All right, do you have the new number?
I don't. I think she has the same number. She has a different phone. She just wants
a different handset?
Which is silly because they want to. You don't need to put a bug on a phone physically.
Right.
I mean, it's funny.
Why would she be concerned about people bugging her phone, or the police bugging her phone, I guess is what she's specifically concerned about?
She's real concerned about that. She told me that.
Did you ask why?
No, I knew she was.
Okay, let's assume for a second that Wendy was innocent. Because technically she is before being proved guilty in a court of law. Even though the case is closed in the court of public opinion, and we all know what my opinion is. But under the assumption of innocence, why would an innocent person who had just learned of her ex-husband's passing find it necessary to buy a whole new phone over fear that the cops had bugged your last one? A normal innocent person, who Wendy claims to be, would have nothing to hide. Also, who Wendy claims to be.
You don't realize that you could be helpful in finally untangling this to give this jury the truth about what happened to Professor Markel?
I have been nothing but helpful since this started.
So what happened to their son? By you looking at it, you are at the center of all this, but you won't look at anything to help in the process.
I've done nothing but help in this process.
You came here and testified.
I came here and testified. I spoke to the police for 6 hours without anyone present. I signed over my cell phone, my car, my house, everything, my computer. What else do I have or know that you haven't seen?
And then promptly got rid of my house, my cell phone, my car, my computer. What else do you want from me? I'm an open book. Because if you were innocent, there would be nothing that the cops would see or hear that would put you in any sort of jeopardy to warrant you getting an entire new cell phone.
You're guilty.
I immediately thought she did this, and so she told me 50 times, Jeff, I had nothing to do with this. And I always just let it be silent, sorry. I just let it be silent because I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to play my hand. I've never said anything to her. I just wanted to listen. I was hoping she might give me something interesting and I would come tell you guys. Because she's erratic enough, I thought she might say something stupid. She must have said 50 times, I had nothing to do with this. And
Okay, let's do a brain exercise together. Think back on the last time someone that you knew passed away. Or if you haven't experienced that, think back on a time when a celebrity has passed away. Do you find it necessary to go around telling everyone over and over and over that you swear that you had nothing to do with the death of Biggie Smalls? R.I.P. B.I.G. No. And you know why? Because innocent people don't even consider the notion that someone might think that they did it. Because it's a given, it's assumed. Of course you didn't do it. You don't even think about maybe having done it. But Wendi knew that she was a suspect. And not just because she's the ex wife, but because she had such a guilty conscience. The real question is, how soon did the cops consider her a suspect? Well, I happen to have some documents that might shed some light on the subject. In a supplemental report written by Scott Cherry, he records the following. I was first tasked with drafting and securing a search warrant for the crime scene as the house was still in the name of the ex-wife, Wendi ADELSON. It was learned quickly on scene that Markel and ADELSON recently went through a nasty divorce. A search warrant was reviewed by Judge Fleury and executed subsequently. So the moment they got to the scene, they learned that the house is still in Wendi's name and look into the divorce records and show their contentious, nasty relationship. So to answer that question, I'd say immediately. Officer Cochran then speaks to Mr. Geiger, who informs him that Dan and Wendi are recently divorced and have 2 children together. As the incident had just occurred, I was tasked with traveling to Adelson's last known address, 3303 Aqua Ridge Way, to conduct surveillance. Upon arrival in the area, I remained stationary with a view of the front of Adelson's residence. During my time on the scene, I did not observe any activity at Adelson's residence. After approximately 1.5 to 2 hours, I was advised that Miss Adelson had been located and the children in question had been accounted for. I was advised that I no longer needed to surveil Adelson's residence. Note, he didn't say he went there to deliver the news. He went there for surveillance. All right, so TPD arrived at Dan's house around 11:30. So, accounting for the time that it took this officer to speak to Mr. Geiger, we can estimate the time he would have left to go to Wendi's house, maybe between 12 and 12:30.
So it makes sense that you might have left your residence at about 12:30?
Sure.
Okay.
Meaning he just missed her leaving. Because it would make sense that Isom would be the one to both assign him to Wendi's house and pull him off when he himself got to Wendi, which, with her interview starting at 2:45 and the police department only being a 10-minute drive from the site of Mosaic, the timeline lines up pretty well for him arriving to her house for surveillance around 12:30, as it's about a 15-minute drive from her house to Dan's house. And as we know, the time that Wendi left her house...
Okay, so it makes sense that you might have left your residence at about 12:30?
Sure.
Okay.
So that all lines up. But I found that a very interesting piece of information that Isom sent an officer to post up at her house. And then, as we've also learned, he gave another officer a description of Wendi's vehicle and posted him on the perimeter of the crime scene, should she pull up.
And then you go and then you kind of block off traffic coming down Trescott, right?
Yes, sir.
Were you asked by any of the investigators to provide a log of any vehicles that were attempting to come down Trescott?
Not a log of vehicles coming down.
And by that I mean, like, nobody asked you to observe which cars were coming and turning around, right?
Not specifically which cars were coming and turning around now.
Did you have a notepad with you in your vehicle?
I always have one with me.
Did you take notes of which vehicles came down Trescott and turned around?
Only the one that was of concern.
Okay, and you took a specific note with regards to this vehicle?
It's in the report, sir.
And what did you write?
Basically that I'd seen a vehicle matching that of the description known to be driven by the ex-wife.
So you knew, when were you told the description of the vehicle known to be let me rephrase that. Sorry, I'm all over the place. So you knew going in what Miss Adelson's car looked like?
At some point after arrival, I was made aware of what
what her vehicle looked like?
Yes, sir.
And this is before you got in your car and you posted up and did your job to create a perimeter, correct?
It may have been right beforehand or while I was sitting there. That I can't recall. It's been a few years.
Understandable. Once you saw the vehicle that you believe matched her vehicle, did you get on your radio and say, hey, somebody go ahead and pull Miss Adelson over?
No.
At that point, did you know that she was an ex-wife?
From what I've been told on scene, it appeared that there was a separation or split or something. I couldn't have stated that conclusively at that point, though.
You have the ability to get on your radio, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there's other law enforcement officers, I assume. You said there's 4 cars at the scene, right?
Yes.
Okay, there's a crime scene van there?
Yes.
There is no lack of law enforcement to be able to assist you to pull this vehicle over and inform this woman that her ex-husband had been shot twice in the face, correct?
As far as what I knew at that point, we didn't have a reason to stop her. I was just told, be on the lookout for the vehicle. And I had notified the investigator that I'd seen a vehicle matching. And, that was, that's all I can tell you about that part of it. They told us to keep an eye out, saw a vehicle that matched it, and I just let them know that I did see a vehicle that looked like it.
Well, but you understand my question, right? Because
yes.
Your testimony, officer, is that it appeared that this van, which had a clear view of her ex-husband's house, right?
Yes.
Because your testimony is assuming to this jury that it was Wendi Adelson that was driving that car, right?
I'm sorry, say that last part again?
Your testimony, or what you're suggesting to these jurors, is that may have been Wendi Adelson in that maroon color in this vehicle, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so your testimony was also that when the car came, the person didn't stop and ask you what's going on, right?
No.
The person didn't get out screaming, oh my God, that's my ex-husband's house, right?
No.
And you would agree with me that may be considered a normal response to seeing law enforcement and crime scene and EMS and somebody that you had a relationship with, that's their house, right?
Quite possibly.
So the normal response would have at least been to inquire, correct?
I can't say what her normal response was because I don't know what her role exactly was.
Okay, well.
Did you catch that?
You would agree with me that may be considered a normal response to seeing law enforcement and crime scene and EMS and somebody that you had a relationship with, that's their house, right?
Quite possibly.
So the normal response would have at least been to inquire, correct?
I can't say what her normal response was because I don't know what her role exactly was.
Okay, well.
He can't say what a normal response from Wendi may have been because he didn't know what her role was. Murderer, i.e. if she was a victim or a perpetrator. Because I think most of us could agree that a normal response from someone pulling up to a crime scene at a house where their kids were that morning would get out and inquire at least. But the killer would have a very different reaction.
Let me ask you this. The car in question didn't stop, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Didn't stop to inquire to you as to what's going on, right?
No, sir.
Didn't get out of the car?
No, sir.
Didn't ask you any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. And pretty smoothly made a 3-point turn and drove away, right?
Correct.
And when you had to turn around at the tape, right, to go back out?
I think I tried to turn right and it couldn't turn, so I would have made like the kind of turn, like a K turn, and kept going.
Was there a roadblock there with?
There was tape.
Yeah, and an officer was there?
I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car.
A law enforcement marked vehicle? Okay. Did you have any contact with the officer?
No.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that when you observed the vehicle that you saw approach the crime scene tape, was it your responsibility for finding and interviewing Ms. Adelson, or was that the responsibility of some other officer?
Somebody else.
Okay, and you notified who you thought to be the correct person of what you had seen?
Yes.
And did you do that immediately?
It was right around that same time frame. I called him on the phone.
All right, no further questions.
In a supplemental report written by Detective Isom, he states the following. Wendi Adelson is the former spouse of Dan Markell. It was learned that they have 2 young sons together, and the children were at daycare when this incident occurred. Wendy's name was still assigned to the City of Tallahassee utility records at the incident location. It was determined that Wendi was residing at another location, 3303 Aqua Ridge Way. During the on-scene investigation on July 18th, it was determined her probable location was at the Mosaic Restaurant on Market Street. As there were no other known family members locally, I went to the Mosaic location in an attempt to contact Wendi. I entered the business and announced my presence and intention of contacting Wendi Adelson. She was seated with 2 other women at a table and acknowledged that she was Wendi Adelson. I identified myself with the police credentials and asked that she accompany me to TPD. Wendi appeared distraught and inquired if something had happened to one of her children. I assured her that the children were fine and this event was concerning her ex-husband. Wendi was apprehensive, but agreed to travel with me to Tallahassee Police Department.
My 2 friends that I was with for lunch when they came and found me, how did they find where I was?
I have no idea.
I mean, did they just search for my car? Like, I am just amazed.
And my theory, which I feel has been confirmed by Officer Brannon, is that Isom assigned someone to follow her after she sped away from Truscott. Shortly after Officer Cochran left Wendy's residence, he traveled to ABC Liquor to confirm her purchase of Bullet Bourbon, and then executed a warrant on the following cell phones: Wendi Adelson, Dan Markell, and Charlie Adelson. And this is different from the Cellbrite extraction that they did on Wendy's phone. This is a warrant that grants cell and text details directly from the phone company with no physical handset needed. Court orders were secured for cell phone data from Markell's cellular account as well as Wendy's account. In addition, court orders were obtained for the cellular accounts of Wendy's parents, Harvey and Donna Adelson, and her brother, Charlie. The court orders were provided to the TPD Technical Operations Unit Supervisor Sergeant Corbett for submission and returns from cellular companies. The data did not initially give any obvious information to assist in this investigation. It did show that Charlie and his parents, Harvey and Donna, were in Tallahassee at the time of the murder. Officer Cherry writes, I was provided copies of Wendi Adelson's email accounts and reviewed them in part at the request of Investigator Isom. I viewed her email accounts set up for an online dating site and her Gmail account from all that was captured of 2012 July through September of 2013 and April through June of 2014. And Dan's postmarital relationship was very adversarial and very impersonal. They were both concerned about the children, and this was the basis for most communications. Wendi vented her frustrations to her friends and mother about the hardships in dealing with Markell and the divorce and custody issues. It was very clear that she wanted to move to South Florida to be closer to her family. So straight away, investigators were reviewing her phone data, calls, texts, and emails. So regardless of what she was telling Isom about her and Dan's relationship, he was able to see in black and white that she was not being honest in her account. So this, paired with the knowledge that she had showed up to the crime scene, behaved differently than any other vehicle that had pulled up that day, and was lying about how her and Dan got along, there's no way the red flags weren't flying. From the very first documents reviewed, they learned the following. She filed for divorce September 10, 2012. Markell reportedly returned home from a business trip to find his family gone, a majority of the contents of the house missing, and the paperwork for dissolution of marriage displayed on the bed. He eventually learned that Wendi and their 2 children had moved to her parents' home in Coral Springs. Markell protested and Wendi returned to Leon County with the children until legal arguments could be heard. Her parents, particularly the mother, were very involved with trying to facilitate the relocation of their daughter and grandkids to South Florida. In June of 2013, a judge formally denied her motion for relocation with prejudice. After this ruling, her mother, Donna Adelson, sent emails to Wendi with suggested tactics that she could coerce Markel into agreeing to the relocation of their children. This included offering Markel a large sum of money and photographing the children in front of a local church, that the boys were being taken to a Christian place of worship rather than a Jewish synagogue. Donna even suggested for Wendi to threaten Markel that she would have the boys baptized in the Catholic Church. This suggestion was in spite of the fact that Wendi and the Adelsons are also Jewish. Not included in this is the part where Donna suggests that they dress up the kids in Hitler Youth uniforms like little toddler Nazis. This family is bonkers. The threats that they were suggesting were akin to a child not getting their way, so they tell you that they're going to hold their breath until they do. Brats. They're brats. That's all I'm trying to say. There's also a report from Isom about his interview with Wendi, and these are the things that he highlighted. Wendi received a voicemail from an associate while waiting in the interview room, informing her of a police incident at her ex-husband's home. I confirmed that her husband had been seriously wounded by gunfire. Wendi broke down emotionally. She then composed herself immediately and provided an account of her activities for this day leading up to Mosaic, where I contacted her. She could not provide a possible suspect that had been feuding with Markel and discounted Markel of having any criminal associates. They were separated in 2012 and divorced a year ago in 2013. They share custody of their 2 children, and Wendi said that she was out of town visiting her parents from June 30th through July 10th of this year. Wendi stated that she has lots of friends and surmised someone may have committed this act, believing it would somehow help her. She then stated at 3:08:45 p.m., her brother Charlie makes a lot of jokes in bad taste and told Wendi he had looked into hiring a hitman but found it cheaper to buy her a TV. She referred back to the morning conversation with her brother Charlie over the phone concerning a TV that he purchased for her that was now broken. Wendi did not believe Charlie or any other member of her family would actually be involved in this crime. Wendi said her brother is a dental periodontist in South Florida, and she stated that after the divorce she wanted to relocate to South Florida with her children and felt that her former in-laws would suspect her of this crime against their son since she was denied the ability to move with her children by the court. Wendi was asked about the punishment of someone convicted of this crime should the defendant be known to her. She answered the person should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, unless it was someone in her immediate family, which she does not believe is the case. She does not suspect her brother Charlie would be capable of this crime. At 7:03 p.m., Wendi wanted to call her parents and notify them of the incident. While contemplating aloud what she would say, she told the victim advocate, seated beside her, her parents were very angry with Dan Markel and described it as a very fucked up situation. Wendi then called and talked to her mother. After notifying her of the shooting, she asked her parents to travel to Tallahassee from their home in Broward County. At the end of the conversation, Wendi tried to catch her mother before she disconnected. Her mother immediately called Wendi back, and Wendi asked her to notify Charlie of the shooting so she wouldn't have to make a separate call to him. Yeah, and she probably didn't want to make that call to Charlie because he would say "finally" loud enough to be heard by the victim advocate.
They're very angry with him, right? Like, well, this isn't like it's their son, but he's the father of my kids, and this is a very, pardon my language, fucked up situation. Okay, I'm gonna call my parents. Okay. I have no idea what to say because I don't even know that he's dead.
And if I can't tell them for sure that he's dead, then we spent all this money for nothing. What? What? Nothing.
Hi, Mom. How's it going? Mom, I need you to sit down. I am fine. The boys are fine. I need you to sit down. I'm fine, and the boys are fine. Danny has been. You can put me on speaker. Yeah. Danny has been shot.
What? What?
And I don't think he's gonna make it.
It is a fucked up situation. I think anyone who's willing to snuff the life out of someone who gets in the way of their misguided plans are pretty much fucked up. So one of the main questions is why, if Isom had this much intel at his fingertips, why wasn't he harder on Wendi? Isom is a seasoned investigator, and he went with the catch more bees with honey approach, even knowing that Wendi was a murder hornet. He knew that if he came at Wendi in an accusatory tone, that she wasn't going to hang around for very long. And with the likelihood being slim to none that Wendi would have confessed anything, his best bet was just to make her feel comfortable so he could keep her there as long as he wanted to. Getting every shred of data off her phone and letting her act completely off kilter the whole time. He didn't get a confession, but she said a lot of incriminating things and acted in ways that were completely inappropriate for the situation.
Okay, but he might make it.
I don't want to give you that false hope.
I'm sorry, I just thought he was gone, and now I don't know what to tell. It's sort of a game changer.
I know, and then when, something like this happens, they do go to the hospital.
How did this... So, when it happened, did someone call the police because they heard a gunshot or something? How would they know did he call the police? How would they know to take him to the hospital?
I don't know the answers to all these, and I'm not, I'm going to let, when Investigator Isom comes back in here, I'll let you kind of ask some of those questions.
Okay.
Okay. But I didn't want you to think, I'm sorry, I just didn't want you to think that he was
I thought he was gone.
And that's what I was getting from your conversation, and I didn't want it to be...
If he's still alive, I need to make different choices.
Right.
I want the boys to be with him. Well, I don't know. I mean, if he looks scary, then...
Right, and that's what...
Is that why? Does he look scary? Is that why?
I don't know.
So, with all this evidence against Wendi, why hasn't she been arrested yet? So, I think there's multiple answers to this, so let's go over them now. Problem number 1, Willie Meggs. Willie Meggs was the state attorney for 30 years. He was the first major roadblock on this journey to justice. As followers of the investigation of the murder of Professor Dan Markell will recall, State Attorney Willie Meggs has been proceeding with caution in the case. Even though some of his colleagues in law enforcement allege involvement in the murder by the Adelsons, the family of Markell's ex-wife Wendi, Meggs has so far not approved any prosecution against them. And the Adelsons, through their lawyers, have maintained their innocence. Meggs even offered this sassy comment: if the police believe they have probable cause, then they can go ahead and make the arrest. They don't need me. I would say to Chief Michael DeLeo, go make the arrest and get ready for your civil suit from whoever they've arrested without probable cause. So it seems to be that one of the paramount reasons for not prosecuting the Adelsons was a direct threat to bring civil suits against any and all offices involved if any attempts were made to go after the Adelsons. And that sounds like it came right out of the horses' mouths. David Lapp from Above the Law even looked into whether or not the Adelsons had made a contribution to his campaign. And even though he couldn't find anything, I don't think that bribery is above them in any way. And I also don't think that they would leave a paper trail for this. Meggs said disagreements between his office and police investigators continue, but until police gather more substantial evidence that can be proven in court, there would likely be no more arrests in Markell's killings. And this article was written in the time period between Sigfredo Garcia's arrest in May of 2016 and Katie's arrest in October of 2016. Officers can arrest Magbanua or the Adelsons without a warrant because they face felony charges, Meggs added. Police interpretations of the evidence are the problem, Meggs said. It's what investigators say, not necessarily what the evidence shows. Making the jump from theories to formal charges is a big leap. If they believe that someone said something and we're supposed to adopt what an officer thinks and arrest somebody, that's not the way it works, Meggs said. After Meggs declined to approve probable cause for the arrest of McManawat and Charlie Adelson, sources in the state attorney's office confirmed that TPD began seeking out the authority of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Florida. Katie McManawat was arrested 3 weeks after these statements were made. And although I was able to procure the arrest warrant signed by the judge, I wasn't able to find concrete proof of who exactly gave the green light on the warrant itself. Here's the warrant for Katie's arrest. And this was signed about a week and a half before her arrest by James C. Hankinson, who presided over both of Sigfredo and Katie's first trial, as well as Katie's retrial. So, although it's unclear whether or not he ended up signing off on Katie's arrest, he was quite clear that none of the Adelsons would ever be charged in relation to Dan's death. After reading the probable cause affidavits for both Charlie and Katie, Meggs categorically said that there was absolutely no evidence or probable cause to make any arrest, a stance that the Adelsons publicly applauded, with Charlie's lawyer at the time, David. Mr. Meggs has spent the past 40 years as a prosecutor, with 30 years as a state attorney, and before that was a decorated police officer. He is one of the most experienced state attorneys in our nation, and he knows probable cause when he sees it, Marcus said. We are thankful that he faithfully and honorably fulfilled his duties and did not approve this document, which amounted to no more than simple speculation after a truly exhaustive investigation. The Adelson family previously released a statement denying involvement in the slaying. Any speculation to the family's involvement is categorically false. That aged well. After Meg's retirement in December of 2016, the investigation was full steam ahead. The Dolce Vita tape was certainly some of the most important evidence against Charlie. And although it was able to be heard and transcribed by investigators in 2016, it wasn't made clear enough for a jury to hear this until several years later. This was truly the tipping point to bringing Charlie to justice.
Sir, were you asked to clarify recordings in reference to the case State of Florida versus Charles Adelson?
Yes, I was.
All right, I want to start with the Dolce Vita restaurant recording. What items were provided to you in reference to that exhibit?
I received 2 recordings, one from each device that was deployed in that restaurant.
All right, and was one better audio and one better video?
Yes.
All right, and what's the part that's of interest to you?
The audio.
Okay, and so you don't do anything with the video?
Only used it for observational timing reasons.
Okay. And was the bag that had the mesh on it, was that the one that was the better audio? Or
Yes.
the one that had the better video?
Right. The one with the better video had very poor audio, and the one that had better audio had very poor video.
All right, I'm with you. And the one where we're looking through the little holes, is that the one with the good audio or the good video?
The good audio.
All right. Can you sort of walk through the process for the jury of how you clarify an audio that has a lot of background noise going on?
Yes, our technique is a bit different than other techniques in that we take the audio and treat it like it's an image, like a photograph that's out of focus, it's blurry. And so we read it into the computer and figure out how to unblur the sound, just like you would unblur a photograph. And this fortunately has the nice effect of focusing in on the person's voice or the people's voice if they're near each other, and blurring out the rest of the background, sort of how you would use a video lens if you're a photographer. And you can zoom in on a person's face, but everything behind the person and everything closer is blurry and kind of pushed down and not as noticeable.
Were there any particular issues or problems with this audio?
It was frankly a mess. Competing voices, loud noises, movement of both devices, not good positioning. There was a kitchen, and of course it's a busy cafe. Coffee grinders, blenders, order taking, lots of different sounds going on.
All right, and can you tell the jury that the most up-to-date efforts available in your field were applied to this exhibit to make it as good as possible?
They were.
All right, and what was the outcome? I think you've got some different segments. Could you tell us about that?
Yes. Fortunately, the recording device that had the better audio was also the one that had the longest audio. The recording started at different times. One device arrived into the establishment significantly prior to the other one. I believe it was like 20 minutes difference. The one that started first, its recording first, moved. The person carrying it came in from the outside, came to the counter, then went to a seat, and then moved to a different seat, getting better position. And each one of those changes of location causes the focus to change, just like you were taking a picture. All of a sudden, the person you're trying to take a picture of moves, you've lost your focus, and you have to regain your focus. Also, a limitation of our tool limited the sheer amount of audio. It's a huge amount of recording, and so we had to break it up into portions, segments, which we did the beginning, the middle, and the end. And we worked with the FBI agent to break it at about the same points that the motion happened of the recording device.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to examine State's Exhibit 110 thumb drive?
Yes, immediately before we came in here.
All right, and is this a fair and accurate work product that you did as far as the audio only on the Dolce Vita recording?
Yes.
And as much as they were able to clean up the audio, I was able to clean it up even more.
It would have already not done it more. And the problem is, even if they bug this, even if they bug your whole phone, nobody will know more. Even if they bug your phone, depends. You're about to hate it. And they bug your phone, there's not a phone without anything. So my point is, how do you get people to talk? How do you put a smoke crack? And then you get all the cockroaches to run out. There's smoke in the house, smoke in the house. And everyone's running and everyone's talking. And you throw a smoke grenade, what do you think? Listen, if that's what it was, it's very smart. Because Matt asked me, my mom kind of insults my dad. And my dad's going to look out when he finds out. But my mom hasn't told my dad anything. But normally, obviously, if that was the cop that came and spoke to my mom, that night, when she comes home from work, she would say, guess what, I got money. Guess who paid me a little visit when I'm taking the grandkids to school. And then, after I dropped them off, she was walking. She dropped them off and I was walking back by herself. So this person had to be looking at the thing, and a lot of times my mom takes the car, drives to the school, because this person, her routine, knows who she is. And someone may have called to the office. My dad works Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He'd probably either get him on the beach or get him at the office up there. And may have approached my mom because my dad maybe some less carries a gun. So you never know. Someone, you don't want to turn into a fucking shootout. I mean, I can say a lot of I carried on me. I mean, don't come up to me. carry on you right now. I mean, I'm going to start carrying one on my back. Like, you know, the holster that fits in your back. Someone comes up to me, they better be ready to shoot. I'm going to shoot. Someone comes up to me, asks me for money in my house. Yeah, and guess what? When the fucking police show up, and there's a doctor, or the oral surgeon standing there with a dead gang member in the fucking driveway, they're not gonna come down too hard on me. And I'm not gonna talk anyway. I don't know much, I don't trust them. It's just not like some shit showing off tattoos here, man. Like, this is actually serious. Because these people are gonna come back. They didn't go through the trouble of seeking my mom out to his dad and then go away. So I got two options. They're not going away. And they wish to go away and never come back. They ain't going away. The trouble they wait. Well, with the beard or with the badge? Well, I don't listen. If a badge comes up to you, tell them have a nice day, officer. Listen, if they want to charge you with something, charge me. If not, I don't talk to cops. Sorry. No, it's very simple. It's like, if you're gonna charge me, charge me. Yeah, but things have changed a lot, though. You know what's changed a lot? There's cameras everywhere. So cops now, they have a fucking pension. When they retire, they're gonna get a pension for the next 30 years, medical, dental, and a salary every month. If they think that, you know, the camera, look, how many cameras are in here? 5? You know? I mean, they better be doing it in a place where there's not a chance that someone doesn't have a camera pointing outside the building they captured it or their dash. What I'm saying is that this person is not going away. They came very equipped with details. Where did the details come from? I don't know. The details I don't have. Well, because one of the things, you go to the cops, you get information. They just put them in the scene and the date. The guy's name was Tuco. I don't even know who the fuck it is. This is Tuco. Tuco's person. And I know that you've been held in your family has been held in and her family. Now, Tuco's family needs your help. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, well, maybe this will refresh your memory. I handed it to her. What? They think they don't see people in a way to inform stories where they think. How's that? Let me ask you a question. When everybody was there, it's not like you're driving around in a Bentley, cruising around in a mega yacht, you know. Something you must have at some point. Otherwise, you'd have no idea. Nobody knows something. Yeah. Well, you can know something, but not any. And the problem is this thing. Okay, so this, go tell the cops. They're going to ask you, where's the weapon? You're going to say, I don't know. You know who? Say name. Okay. Were you, did you witness it? Just say no. If you didn't witness it, you only heard a rumor on the street that this person did something. You know what that's worth? Zero. Then what you do is you wear a wire, get this person talking, and if you can get the person to confess on a wire, then you have something in your charge. You have a confession. Outside of that, there's no evidence. Okay? If you have a car and you can link this person to renting that car that you did the crime, okay. But you have to prove that they were also driving that day too. They didn't rent it and then lend it to a friend. What if you rented a car today? I go, Katie, can I borrow it for the weekend? I'll bring it back on Tuesday. You go, yeah, sure. So you rented a car. You've been in that car. I drive it to fucking Orlando. I rob McDonald's in Orlando. I come back and I go, here's the keys, Katie. And we go, okay, thanks. Yeah, you rented it, but. Or what if you were fucking out all weekend and you didn't even know I took your car? I did something and I brought it back. Okay. My point is I don't have any knowledge of what went on. Evidently, this person's either pretending to or does. I don't want someone paying business for my parents. Cool. I wish it was cop playing games. Why did it know this? It was a cop playing games or an investigator playing games. And they didn't mention me. They didn't mention their son's girlfriend. Not mention me at all. And my family. And I think if they thought I had something to do with it, they would find me and they'd talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, go talk to the person who's involved, not talk to people who are involved. And I'm not involved, but if they knew our view, your relationship is changing on my family. Like, I gave not my mom, my dad gave. This person obviously doesn't know that we date. That's the right action. Who was the boyfriend? The 71-year-old guy, not very much. Or the 30-year-old guy. Yeah, not waste your time with mom. They need to talk to you. So, wouldn't it make sense that you're connected to my family? You're connected to my family is not my mom. Like, yeah, you work in the office now, which I see you. And that's just because you come in and work on the weekends, which I trust that you're knowing about every day when I see you. You tell me you do it in places to clean, so you get your check. You clean up, whatever, but that's neither here nor there. This person knows all the information. So even if they are a cop, they're speaking that information. And they also know that they're claiming that somebody had something to do with this incarcerated. I don't know anything.
All they need to do is record a confession on a wire, he says, and then proceeds to immediately confess on the wire.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Let's get back to Wendi. One of the biggest reasons she's not been arrested yet is because the state has used her as a witness in every single trial so far. And she is a great witness for the state. Not only does she sit up on the witness stand as if it's her own personal throne, But the smugness and casualness that she answers these questions are extremely off-putting for the jury.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me.
Not a good look. Because not only is the jury to listen to what the witnesses have to say, they also need to discern the credibility of that witness.
You should consider how the witnesses acted as well as what they said. Some things you should consider are: did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified? Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? Does the witness's testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in the case? Has the witness been offered or received any money, preferred treatment, or other benefit in order to get this witness to testify? Had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the truth of the witness's testimony? Did the witness at some other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court? Has the witness been convicted of a felony?
So being a shitty witness makes her a great witness for the state. And it also gives the state the opportunity to be able to introduce one of the most powerful pieces of evidence: her little visit to the crime scene. Twice. Once through the officer who saw her pull up, and then once again through her. And the main thing that makes this so potent is that the testimonies are the same, but with some very glaring differences.
Your testimony, officer, is that it appeared that this van, which had clear view of her ex-husband's house, right?
I didn't even think, like, that's the house.
Yes. Your testimony is assuming to this jury that it was Wendi ADELSON that was driving that car, right?
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Your testimony, what you're suggesting to these jurors, is that that may have been Wendi ADELSON in that maroon color in this vehicle, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and an officer was there.
I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car.
A law enforcement marked vehicle? Okay, did you have any contact with the officer?
No.
Okay. And so your testimony was also that when the car came, the person didn't stop and ask you what's going on, right?
No.
And I just thought, oh, there's maybe some trees down or something.
The person didn't get out screaming, oh my God, that's my ex-husband's house, right?
And so I drive up Trescott and I see the tape and I was like,
No.
And you would agree with me that that may be considered a normal response to seeing law enforcement and crime scene and EMS and somebody that you had a relationship with, that's their house, right?
Quite possibly.
So the normal response would have at least been to inquire, correct?
I can't say what her normal response was because I don't know what her role exactly was.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. The car in question didn't stop, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Didn't stop to inquire to you as to what's going on, right?
No, sir.
Did you do anything after that to try to find out what was going on down that roadway?
No, I just assumed it was weather or maybe a tree fell.
Didn't get out of the car?
No, sir.
Didn't ask you any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. And pretty smoothly made a 3-point turn and drove away, right?
Correct.
I would have made like the kind of turn, like a K-turn thing.
And who do you think the jury finds to be a more credible witness? The police officer, who is just simply testifying to what he's already written in his report, or little Wendi Weasel, who has a vested interest in trying to appear innocent. Now, considering the fact that she had to be forced by subpoena to even testify, and additionally be given the assurance that her words would not be used against her. Let's consider what would have happened if she would have been arrested first. First off, I think the likelihood of her cooperating at all would have been virtually non-existent. I think the only way that she would have even entertained the idea would have been if she had been given some sweet deal. And I'm talking a massive sentence reduction at least. I'm sure that we can all agree that when Wendi gets sentenced, she shouldn't get any leniency. It would have been a huge miscarriage of justice had that have happened. We also have to consider the fact that there are over a half a dozen people who work together to commit this crime. One of the rights that criminals have is the right to a speedy trial. And there would have been no way that Leon County could have simultaneously tried 7 people, thus violating the rights of those charged, as they would have been left in jail waiting for their trials for a very long time. So as frustrating as this has been to watch this tick by one, that's really the only way to do it. Those are the main reasons why I believe Wendi has not been arrested yet, and why I believe she will be saved for last. I know there's been a lot of speculation that the reason why she hasn't been arrested yet is due to a lack of evidence against her. I don't believe this at all to be true.
Okay. But the specific nature of the email, you will agree, was in the event that there's some kind of mass arrest, because they don't know who's getting ready to go to jail next, right? I mean, they're not privy to the investigation any more than you are, right? Law enforcement investigations, they're secret.
Sure.
Okay. And their concern, would you agree that concern ultimately in the email was for the care of the children?
The concern was to make sure the children were under good care, but as their mother, I know they're always under good care with me.
Right, but
and there's no
the
need for
email
foster care.
contemplated you not being available to care for them.
That's not possible.
Because it's not possible for you to get arrested.
Correct, because I've done nothing wrong and I believe in our justice system.
Okay, well.
LOL. No one has inside information on what evidence is known until the trial. Even while the defendant is awaiting trial, there's motions filed under seal or even ex parte hearings ongoing that the public is not made aware of. Which leads me to my next point. While awaiting Donna's trial, which at the making of this video should be ongoing right now, some very interesting things have been happening. One of which maybe would have never happened at all had her first trial not been delayed. Because about a month after her first trial had been set to start, the state learns of some very interesting information.
Concerning the scope of the sealing, when this matter was first presented to me, when we had the phone conference on April 8th, as it related to matters pertaining to the warrants and any affidavits, and any support for those as to the investigation that recently concluded, I am in agreement with you, those matters would be confidential. However, every filing that may even reference those materials, sealing those filings starts to become a question of whether things are exceeding the scope of confidentiality that's allowed by the rule of general administration. Mr. Zellman, why should all of these matters remain sealed without redaction or other means that could be made to otherwise deal with the portions that are confidential?
Well, Judge Jackie Fulford, on behalf of Ms. Adelson, our position is that the information that's contained in the items that Your Honor is referring to would need to be referred to also in the arguing of these motions. And we're here in open court, and I'm not sure how we protect the sealing of those documents when we're going to have to argue the very materials that serve the basis of why we're here, asking for a continuance and a motion to compel.
Is anyone actually getting into the warrants or the affidavits themselves with what you plan to argue?
Yes, Judge, and the materials from the investigation.
You have those to actually bring up as a part of your argument today?
Yes, Judge.
Not generally, not just referencing them, but the actual materials from the warrants and the affidavits.
Well, there need to be statements put on the record on behalf of Mrs. Adelson regarding what was claimed to have happened in the investigation that has since proven to be false, that has not been retracted by the state. And in making those arguments is part of the basis for why we need a continuance and why we're asking for the relief in the motion to compel, as well as additional depositions. And
to that end, Ms. Dugan, is the state planning to file any superseding indictment or any additional charges based on the investigation that is now concluded, or at least is alleged to have concluded?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
With that being said, if the defense is seeking to file any motions related to these matters, they are not related to pending counts. However, you can pursue them as you believe them to be appropriate. As to the warrants and the applications, does the state have a position as to whether they should remain sealed or any documents referencing them should remain sealed without redaction?
No, sir. We would defer to the court. And some of the discovery the defense has moved to compel is sealed, or a lot of it is. And I actually brought a motion to unseal the documents and recordings related to that today so that those can be provided to the defense, either, but maybe for the limited purpose of discovery, but whatever the court prefers, we don't have a position.
There was a lot of new information learned in this short hearing, so I wanted to tackle it bit by bit. Firstly, what we learn about is a new investigation that has just reached its conclusion in April of 2025. This investigation included a new wiretap relating to parties involved in this case. And as you heard, new warrants, affidavits, and other pertinent information to procure that wiretap. The words warrants is mentioned a half a dozen times in the first few minutes of this hearing, and I, for one, was quite intrigued. Possibly the most shocking part of this is the fact that the state is not adding any new charges onto Donna's current case. So basically, in the fall of 2024, the state received a tip that led to them getting a warrant for a wiretap that spanned a 2-month time period. Now, I think the most vital part about this wiretap is that it was approved by the state, unlike the former wiretapping, which Charlie and Katie's phone were tapped, recorded, and approved by the FBI. The reason why this distinction matters is that apparently state-approved wiretaps are notoriously nearly impossible to get signed. There has to be so much overwhelming evidence that there is both wrongdoing occurring and proof that this is the only way that the evidence of that wrongdoing can be procured. Of the lawyers that I have heard discuss this issue, it seems to almost never be granted. So this is a pretty big deal.
Your Honor, if I could just ask for clarification, are you indicating that you're unsealing the pleadings but not the actual underlying applications, affidavits, and warrants, or you're unsealing
Not the
everything?
warrants, not the affidavits, not the applications, but the pleadings that reference those matters, yes.
It seemed like one of the warrants was issued for a wiretap on Harvey's phone. This is the state's response to the defense's motion to continue. The defense's main argument was due to the discovery which they had not yet received, some of which included the new discovery from the ongoing investigation. In the state's response, they mentioned twice in the first 2 paragraphs some contents of what was gleaned from this new investigation. Shockingly, or not, that Harvey was attempting to tamper with and bribe witnesses. They make mention of this for a 3rd time in paragraph 3 and then mention the 100,000 emails that the defense was given as well. It's important to note that these are emails that were exclusively between Dan Rashbaum and Donna ADELSON and were never even in the prosecution's possession. Now, who precisely was making those bribes is redacted, but we can assume through the rest of the context of this response that it was very likely Harvey, as they also have subpoenaed his phone records through 2 separate companies, and they go on to say that wire calls were made in association with this investigation, as well as FBI recordings which were made by the confidential informant on an FBI-provided device. And since they were still being uploaded, they had not been provided to the defense team. They mention again the attempts to tamper with and bribe witnesses twice more in this paragraph while outlining the raw data being provided to the defense team, as well as a schedule of attorney-client privileges with Donna. More on why the attorney-client visitation schedule is relevant in a minute. Let's hear more about this phone
The wire
tap.
came down on the 21st. I believe the significance of the 24th was that was when the order was signed, and I think Mr. Newland's memo said the 24th, but it is the 21st, which is reflected in the order the court's looking at now.
All right. Court will sign the order at this time. I believe that deals with your motion to compel, Mr. Zellman.
May I address one more thing about the issue we were just talking about? There is obviously this new discovery from this lead that the state was alerted to last fall. We conducted this investigation and followed that investigation to its conclusion. That obviously has resulted in some new discovery in these wire calls, but I did want to let the court know, though there are a large number of calls that the defense, of course, wants to review, there are only, I was told, about 30-something calls deemed pertinent by law enforcement, and the state likely plans to only use maybe 1 or 2 at trial, and believes that the 2 months the defense had from the time it was discovered to the time of trial in June should be sufficient to prepare for that portion of the trial.
Do any of the calls that you intend to use from this recent investigation go to privileged matters or encapsulate calls with counsel?
Thank you. I wanted to address that. There are no calls that were recorded between the defendant, Donna Adelson, and attorneys in this case. I specifically asked the investigator about that before the hearing.
Mr. Zeldin, you may continue with your argument.
Yes, Your Honor. The state has also not responded to our request to let us know if they've also been monitoring our attorney-client conferences at the Leon County Detention Center.
That's a no.
And although the state believes that we're going to have enough time, I calculated this. There are over 32 hours of calls that were captured on that wire. And given the amount of materials that we have just been handed, we have not had an opportunity to review even 2 hours of those calls up to this point. Your Honor, just because the state believes that there's going to be enough time for us to prepare, and it's not 2 months, it's more like 6 weeks. There's not enough time for us to analyze this new information, synthesize it, prepare appropriate motions. We've spent the last 3 weeks dealing with this as opposed to finalizing the motions in limine.
That is an important point you bring up. Essentially, between what has been recently investigated and what the charges have been of murder, solicitation, and conspiracy from the time your client is charged, there are essentially 2 different pots, if you will.
And by 2 different pots, he means 2 different sets of charges. And as we've heard, over 32 hours of conversation were collected from the wire, which out of those 32 hours, the state only plans on using 1 or 2 of those phone calls in this case. Which begs the question, if more of these calls are relevant, whose case will those be used in? It seems pretty likely that Harvey is a definite target, but we can also safely assume for every 1 piece of information that we know about, there's likely 10 that we don't. And note the words warrants, affidavits, and applications, all in plural, were used. So who else has the state been watching?
Back to the recent investigation, discovery, Ms. Dugan, the items that have not been provided, I believe some of these pertain to the parameters in the Title III that were supposed to operate as safeguards. Is there a reason this has not been provided to the defense?
So looking at the reply and the motion to compel, all of those, the things that they're requesting here as far as the minimization instructions, all the logs, all of those things, I feel once the order to unseal has been signed, those can all be disclosed. The only thing that I saw that would be additional that they are asking for is surveillance video, which is surveillance video from the jail, which I've been told has already been disclosed to the defense. They also asked for the financial records that are mentioned in the application. I was told that we subpoenaed Harvey Adelson's Zelle account. I found that those Zelle records and had it sent to the defense this afternoon. So once those items are unsealed and they can be disclosed to the defense, that should be all of the discovery that pertains to the wire.
So, not only was the state monitoring calls on the wires, they also had surveillance of Donna in jail. And as irritated as she's been with Wendi, the likelihood that she's made disparaging comments regarding her involvement is pretty high. Now, a quick note about why the lawyer-client visit schedule is relevant. While watching Surviving the Survivor, they had access to a recent motion brought to the Court of Appeals calling for Judge Everett's dismissal from the case. In this motion, they outlined the accusations made by the state, alleging that there are overlapping communication records between Harvey Adelson, the defense attorney's cell phone, and attorney visits. It is also learned that Harvey Adelson has changed carriers from AT&T to Verizon since the issuance of the previous order. Even though the lawyers deny this claim, I think it would be a pretty big game for the state to try to play if they didn't have actual evidence to back it up. Which I think not only shows the lengths that this family is willing to go to avoid taking accountability for anything that they do, but also how clued in the state is and the lengths that they will go in order to get justice for Dan's murder. I don't believe at all that the prosecution team is going to go through all this work just to leave Wendi on the cutting room floor. Because, after all,
Ms. Adelson, this is all about you, isn't it?
Excuse me?
This is all about you, right?
I was called to be a witness and I'm testifying, so I don't understand the question. Is it a question?
There's about 100 people in this courtroom, right?
There are people in the courtroom.
Possibly thousands watching, right?
I have no idea who's watching.
And it's all because of your failed marriage, right?
I disagree with that.
You disagree that your ex-husband is dead because of your family.
Yes, I disagree.
These jurors are here for weeks doing their civic duty because of your marriage, right?
No.
Katie's going through this ordeal because of that marriage, right?
No.
Dan Markel's parents are going through absolute misery because of your failed marriage. Isn't that right?
No, that's incorrect.
It is all about you, Wendi. You're a liar, you're a manipulative sociopath, and you, my dear little Wendi Pooh, are a cold-blooded murderer. And your days are numbered. I would like to share a small sentiment written by Dan and shared to his blog. With the most gut-wrenching irony, the blog post is titled, "My Dispensability Has Been Proven." He discusses the blog flourishing in his absence as he has been away and thanks Ethan and the guest bloggers for running the asylum so proficiently. He goes on to talk about the most important development in his life, remarking that he just became the luckiest guy on earth. Wendi Adelson agreed to marry me. She now wears what she likes to call a big girl ring, which I find has proven a worthwhile investment in terms of its deterrent powers alone. All I can say is, wow, did I win the lottery of life? And it's a sentiment with which my friends and family eagerly share. Posted on May 25th, 2005. It has taken me so many takes to record this portion of the video without completely breaking down. Because although I like to present my videos with some humor at the Adelson's expense. I don't find what happened to Dan amusing at all. I think often of his parents, Ruth and Phil, who loved their son so deeply and should have never had to say goodbye to him. His sister Shelley and the anguish that she has endured, losing her only sibling. I physically crumble thinking of how long they have had to endure this nightmare. To be forced to suffer the agonizing details of his death and the selfish plot behind it for more than a decade. A wound in your heart that, even though I know will never fully heal, gets torn back open and rubbed raw with each and every new arrest and every setback and every trial. And his boys, those babies who are now growing into young men, are the most tragic victims in this. Sons who will never get the chance to know their daddy. Boys who were so scared and confused with the swiftness that their entire lives were changed. Babies who have grown up being lied to by those who they should be able to trust the most. Depending on the very monsters who orchestrated the worst trauma of their young lives to keep them safe. And now, after all these years, in one of the most formidable times in their lives, as they begin to grow into young men, not only are they facing the immense challenges that most teens face, but one by one, as each member of their family is arrested, the betrayal and deception of learning that those that they have relied on their entire lives committed this heinous crime has got to be almost too much to bear. The absolute sucker punch of learning that the life that you thought you knew has been predicated on the worst lie and betrayal one could ever experience. My heart truly breaks for you. You didn't deserve this. And I pray with everything that I have that you are able to find the strength to survive this heartbreak on top of heartbreak. And as for you, Wendi, you can run, but you cannot hide. So I hope that you have been living it up and soaking up every moment you have in the sun. Savor every single day of freedom that you have not earned, because your days are numbered. I believe in our justice system too, Wendi. And I don't see you making it out unscathed. So I guess it's up to you if you want to prepare yourself or continue to live in your delusion until your arrest. Because as Georgia says,
Stay tuned.